My pleasure to introduce my friend Mike Waltz from Florida.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, thank you. Hey, Representative Mike Waltz from the great state of Florida. I'm a Green Beret by background with multiple combat tours in Afghanistan. And like my friend and colleague Jason Crow, I too would likely not be here if it had not been for the actions of a brave interpreter that stood with me in combat, shoulder to shoulder against the Taliban, and all of them that stood shoulder to shoulder with us, not just putting their lives on the line, but their entire families' lives on the line to take a public stand against extremism. So, Jason, I thank you for your leadership on this. I want to thank the Legion for being here today and putting the weight of your membership behind this, because you all know it's the right thing to do. And I just can't thank you enough. Look, I want to be clear and I want to be blunt. In 1975, then Senator Biden voted against the evacuation of our Vietnamese allies. Had he had his way, we would not have gotten those people out. Fast forward, years later in my last combat tour in Afghanistan, my executive officer was a Vietnamese American who was evacuated as a young boy. His mother worked in our embassy there. His father was in the South Vietnamese Army, was being targeted by the communists for taking a stand with the United States, for taking a stand for freedom. And that gentleman then went on to graduate number 2 at West Point and serve as my executive officer in Afghanistan. How many future Afghan families, how many great American contributions won't we have if President Biden doesn't act and act now? And I want to be clear. If he doesn't act and he doesn't get these people out, blood will be on his hands and on his administration's hands. And I, for one, will very publicly and very loudly hold him accountable for that. The time for talk, the time for debate is over. The Defense Department is accelerating its withdrawal. It plans to be out far sooner than September 11th. We're closing our only air base in just a few weeks, which I personally think is a strategic mistake. But here nor there, we have a moral obligation. We have a moral and national security obligation to get these people out. Evacuate them now. Find a third country. I don't care if it's in Qatar. I don't care if it's in the UAE. I don't care if it's in Guam. We've done it before. We can do it again. Get them out now. Do the paperwork, the processing, the appropriate vetting later. I don't know how to be louder in our support. You don't find many things in Congress these days that have such loud and vocal, bicameral, bipartisan support. The Defense Department has said they're ready to do it. The Congress has said they're ready to support it. The Afghans are begging. I can't even look at my phone right now with the amount of Afghans that are begging for help, saying, we stood with you. Won't America stand with us? And the only question is, where is the order from the White House? Where is that green light to do the right thing? And Representative Crow is absolutely right. The rest of the world is listening, whether they're their local allies in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen, in Africa. You know, the war on terrorism isn't over because the White House decided it doesn't want to be in Afghanistan anymore. We are dealing with a generational war against extremism. It has spread all over the world. We will need local allies. And if we break this promise, if we don't keep to our commitments in Afghanistan, that will have strategic implications around the world. That blood that will be on this administration's hands will have an effect on American soldiers that are currently operating by, with, and through, as they should, our local allies around the world. So thank you all again for covering this. I don't know how to be any stronger in demanding action. We are running out of time. And when that last soldier goes wheels up out of Afghanistan, it is a death sentence for our local allies. The Taliban have made that clear in their words and in their actions as they hunt these people down right now as we speak. Thank you so much. God bless.
Okay, this concludes. Do we have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
For the congressman, when you guys are briefed, Austin Landis respectively, when you guys are briefed by State Department, NSC, whoever it is, what is their reasoning for not doing evacuation? Is it money? Is it logistics? What are they telling you?
Yeah, the decision to make or conduct an evacuation is a policy decision that would have to be made by the President and the White House. So the Department of Defense has made it very clear repeatedly by statements from General McKenzie, Chairman Milley, Secretary Austin, and others that they are developing contingency plans, have developed already some contingency plans to conduct an evacuation if they were ordered to do so. Folks at the State Department have said the same. So, but ultimately, that's a decision that has to be made by the White House, and it is my hope that the President will make that decision.
And has he answered any of you all's letters, or have you talked to anyone at the White House about this directly?
Yeah, we did get an answer to a letter, I think it was last week, that we had sent back in February. There have been multiple other letters that have been sent that we're still waiting on responses from. And we continue to be briefed and have discussions with members of the National Security Council, the State Department, and Department of Defense.
One more question. What is Congress, are you all willing to fund an evacuation if that happened? Are you willing to appropriate funds?
Well, we'd have to look at the scope of that evacuation, but the fact that you have such broad bipartisan support, and there's a lot of support for even lifting the cap, people understand that that's a funding that would have to occur and have to happen if that order were given.
Look, we're getting a lot of happy talk from my perspective. There's meetings. They're doing what DC does. A lot of interagency meetings, a lot of planning. The Pentagon's made it clear they're ready to do this. They just need the order from the White House. And why that order isn't being given, that's a great question that I would love an answer to. But if we look at the trend, where again in 1975, President then Senator Biden said there was no moral obligation to get our allies out. That's the only thing at this point I can point to, is the President himself doesn't think this is important or a priority. I do think there is a false notion that we have time after we leave, that we can kind of get around to the paperwork. That's my fear, that there is this belief in the White House that American soldiers can leave, we can shut down air bases, and then we can continue to process paperwork. And again, I think that's a death sentence for these poor people.
What about our former colleagues in the war on terror, Brits and whatnot? What are they doing?
That's a great question. My understanding is the Brit, as the United Kingdom, has removed its interpreters. There's also, the Germans have removed theirs. They've lived up to their commitments. The United States needs to live up to theirs. And I just want to make one more point. It's not just the interpreters. It's school teachers. It's journalists. It's 25% of the Afghan parliament is set aside for women. These women have repeatedly suffered assassination attempts, acid thrown on their faces. We're hearing credible reports now of Taliban-controlled areas where elected women are no longer allowed to step into their office. So the other piece to this is the refugee cap. The administration just raised the refugee cap to 62,000. If you look at the Vietnam model, there was a parole model, there was a refugee model. President Ford then showed leadership and told the interagency, told his administration, find ways to get this done. That's the leadership we need to see from President Biden right now. And I don't mean that to sound partisan in any way, shape, or form. This has bipartisan support. We just need the commander-in-chief to give the green light and do the right thing.
And I agree, and just to dovetail on that question, I agree with Mike that I believe there is a notion that we have more time than we do. The withdrawal is about 50% complete. It's happening at a much faster rate than anyone expected. I believe it'll be substantially complete next month. Yep. At this rate. We have very little time. I think that we're going to continue to see a degradation of the security environment there. And with respect to our allies, one very important issue is the security of Kabul airport. We're already seeing the provinces fall into the hands of the Taliban. The outer ring road has security checkpoints and is becoming largely impassable. So one of the issues that I've raised to the administration is we need to find a way to move applicants from the outer provinces into the Kabul security perimeter. Because after we leave, the freedom of movement will become almost impassable. And then in addition to that, we are trying to figure out a way to get Turkey to stay and to secure the Kabul airport. They have said that they are willing to do it, but from the Taliban's perspective, they believe that our withdrawal includes the withdrawal of all NATO forces, including Turkish forces as well. So that's being negotiated right now.
Yeah, and if I could just add one more thing. I mean, one thing that's important for people to understand, you have to bring like binders of documentation, the Afghans do, to prove that they meet the criteria, that they've worked with us, and that's fine. That vetting should be in place. If they're stopped at a checkpoint by the Taliban, as happened to one of my interpreters, they're dead. So the very process with which they have to go through could very well kill them. So I think Representative Crow is absolutely right, and there are many things that we could be doing to make this much easier and to make this less life-threatening. And it's not just them. Imagine if not only did you put your life on the line, but your entire family's life on the line to go through this process. We need to get them out. And Representative Crow is absolutely right. Time is running out very, very quickly.
Just quickly,
Yes,
what is the most practical, doable solution? Is it some kind of a third country? Is it leaving maybe a contingency force, as I think Senator Inhofe has suggested, to secure the airport or something like that? What do you think is the most practical thing you can do at this point?
I think the most practical thing is to evacuate pending applicants to Guam. We have a history of doing it. We don't have to reinvent that wheel. We know how to do it. We've been in close coordination with the representative from Guam and the governor of Guam, who have said that they are willing to step up.
Yep.
And they will make it happen, that they support it. Time is the most important thing here, and we don't have it. We can take these folks, we can get them out of country into Guam, and then we can take the time that we need to make sure that this is done the right way. But we don't have the time if they are to remain in Afghanistan, and that is the crux of the issue.
Okay. Any more questions?
Well, I hope you'll ask those same questions of the administration. Where is the green light? President Biden, do the right thing. Erase your mistake of your past votes when it came to Vietnam. Step up. It's not just the right thing morally, it's the right thing strategically. If we have to go back into Afghanistan, if Al-Qaeda comes roaring in the wake of a Taliban takeover, as ISIS did in the wake of the precipitous withdrawal from Iraq, and we have to go back in, what local allies will we have? Who will trust us to work with us again? That's when it's American soldiers' lives on the line if we have to go back. So the implications here are huge. And I just can't thank you all enough. I can't thank you enough, Representative Crow, for being a leader on this. I know it isn't easy. And yeah, God bless.
All right, thank you.
So from the American Legion, this is one of our top priorities. We've been working on this since 2018, where we wrote a resolution trying to get this movement going. So about 2 months ago, we sent a letter to the President of the United States and the Secretary of State, basically saying we are out of time. We need to do this now. So that's what we're hoping. We agree with both congressmen. We're out of time. We need to move now. We need to start getting the Afghan interpreters, translators out now. Are there any more questions? Okay.
I came a little bit late. How has your outreach been with the Biden administration from Veteran Affairs, American Legion perspective, and a congressional perspective? You said you talked to them before. Do they see the same urgency? Is that at the top of their plate right now when he's overseas dealing with Green Flag recruit and stuff? Do you think that the administration's distracted? What do you think's going on here that it hasn't sort of led to this?
Just want to take that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of folks within the administration that understand the urgency, both at DOD and the State Department. And from my perspective, the engagement and the communication with the administration has been very good. I've had multiple briefings with the National Security Council, the State Department, DOD, and they have kept us apprised. But ultimately, as we've said, there has to be a policy decision made by the White House for this to be accomplished. And that's what we're pushing for and what needs to happen.
I would just say, just echo that. I mean, there actually has been a series of engagements, good engagements. I want to see action. Like, I understand that you're working in the interagency to tee up options to the president. When are you going to tee those options up? When is he going to make a decision? And then when are we going to see action? Because we're running out of runway, we're running out of time. And I think that is the fundamental disconnect. People who haven't served over there, frankly, are making these decisions. And I think this is just my speculation, I'll be candid, but I think there is a belief that we can just kind of continue this process on after American soldiers leave. And I can tell you they're being hunted down right now as we speak. I have an interpreter that we successfully managed to get out years ago on the cover of my book. His brother was just ambushed and shot last week. His brother never worked with us, but because, again, it's not just their lives, it's their families' lives, and those are the allies that we need if we're ever going to get Afghanistan to a better place where it can defend itself against extremism. We allow them to be hunted down. It truly has strategic consequences. So we need action from the Biden administration. No more briefings. What's the decision? What's the action? And let's move out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no more questions, thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thanks.